So, Shaun, I've got to ask you, you played under him. What is it like to play your football under Neil Warnock?
I mean, I played under Neil Warnock at Sheffield United as a very young player. He actually sold me to Portsmouth, so I've kind of experienced both sides of him. You know, the ruthlessness of Neil as well, where, you know, he's not afraid of making big calls and just dropping people or selling people on. So I've experienced that. But I've also experienced the highs of playing under Neil at Crystal Palace and at QPR. For me, he is your stereotypical top championship manager. He really is. He understands the league. He understands the characters that need to play in that league. But more importantly, he puts trust in you as a player. And probably even more importantly than that, he puts trust in his staff. Kevin Blackwell, Ronnie Jepson, Cole Saran have been with him at numerous clubs, and he just says, this is my way, and we're going to do it my way. And I think when it's black and white like that, you've got clear boundaries.
I guess the amazing...
Well, the thing is about Neil as well, you know, he's getting into his obviously senior years now, so he manages his time brilliantly. And he puts so much trust in these other staff members,
right,
who are probably a little bit more au fait with the new regimes and the styles and systems that younger players have been brought up with. And he'll turn up sometimes later on in the week. And when the manager turns up and he, you know, walks onto that training session, I've seen it with my own eyes. It goes up 20%.
Right.
And I think he just manages his time perfectly at football clubs.
Here's a question for you. Who is the best typical British manager? Is it Neil Warnock or Big Sam Allardyce?
Well, I worked with Sam as an even younger player at Notts County, so
well, you're perfectly qualified to answer.
Yes.
Well, he was a young manager driving around in an old Scorpio and had a massive curly tash back at Notts County. So
is
slightly
the perfect
different
image. That's all I need to know.
But no, who's the perfect English manager? Sam's worked predominantly at the Premier League, hasn't he?
Yeah.
You know, and he's found his way of
He's
surviving.
stat man as well, isn't he?
He's a stat man, and he survives in the Premier League. And I don't think you can overlook the importance of survival in the Premier League, because he's a safe pair of hands. And when you know that you're at certain clubs who just can't afford to go down, he's your man.
And you know what? If he does it with Cardiff City, he said he's not going to stay on in the Premier League. I mean, I'm not. I don't know what you think, Shaun, being a former manager and top player, how you would feel if your manager at the beginning of the season, before a ball was kicked, said, "Oh, by the way, I'm retiring at the end of this season." Does it take anything away from the players and the way they feel about playing for him, or am I just being slightly romantic?
No, I think there's two angles to this. If it was a 50-year-old manager saying that, they'd be thinking, hang on a minute, what's going off here? And I think a few of them would ask questions, but respectfully, the age that Neil is, they'll understand it. He would have been saying, come on lads, one last journey, one last chance
Once more for the Gipper, as they used to say in the American sport.
And obviously, the players are selfish, because you need to be selfish as a footballer, and they'll want to get into the Premier League because they saw what the Premier League gave them last year financially, and on this unbelievable level what the Premier League is.
Yeah.
I think there's something...
I was just about to say that, he's got this tag of being very one-dimensional, Neil Warnock. I can only say in the teams that I played under him, the year we got promoted into the Premier League, when we had the likes of Alejandro Forlan in the midfield for QPR, and then Adel Taarabt, and then we had the likes of Tommy Smith and Jamie Mackie on each wing, and Heide Helgeson at the top. We were phenomenal in the final third. And that's where you win your games.
Yes.
So he'll make no apologies for getting it up there early, but you've got to be consistent and you've got to be creative in that final third.
Do you think, Shaun, that Neil will be glad that he's playing in a league where there isn't VAR?
Well, yeah, he falls out with that fella quite often, doesn't he? He doesn't mix his words.
Have you spoken to him ever about VAR? It's unlikely.
No, we've not.
Knowing him as you do, because once again, it's in the news, isn't it? Mike Riley, of course, PGMOL, has come out and said, in the first month of the Premier League, there's been 4 acknowledged mistakes. In fact, there's been more than that. Are several clubs.
Yeah.
And the bad news is, if you don't like VAR, by the way, dear listener, they're going to be looking at more and more in this next set of games as they progress, starting this weekend. But anyway, I digress. What would you imagine then that Neil's attitude to VAR, pointing out clear and obvious errors, would be?
I think VAR would have frustrated Neil on the basis that part of his management style, especially on the touchlines, is actually being this massive figure that he can influence officials. If you think about, the infrastructure and the resources that they've got at this moment in time, they're probably not in the top 6, even having experienced Premier League last year. So he'll sell a story to the lads. It's us against the world.
Yes.
Come on, we've got 10 teams above us.
And people think that if you get relegated,
you buy into it.
That, you've got this parachute payment, you've got a ridiculous advantage. What they, of course, don't tell you is you've got commitments to wages in the Championship.
Absolutely.
If you haven't been canny and negotiated down the wages, if you get relegated.
And you can't,
so actually, there's not much of an advantage for most of them.
No. And obviously what you can't also then do is you don't throw more money at the issue by just buying more footballers that are more expensive.
And that's where probably Stoke have fallen foul.
Yeah.
They probably didn't even budget for a relegation out the Premier League. So these players are just going to be earning that money until you can get rid of them.